Portuguese Council for Peace and Cooperation salutes all organizations present here.
Not so quick, yeah.
Present here. And it's special. Don't hurry up, it's okay. The Civic Association Soldiers Against War, congratulating them for conducting this important conference. The more important, as complex and dangerous is the international situation and the time in which it takes place. We are gathered at this meeting to mark the 75th anniversary of the invasion of Czechoslovakia by the Nazi forces, resulting from the shameful Munich agreements to dismember Czechoslovakia, in which France, Britain conspired with Hitler and Mussolini. Countries where the ruling class and the big business supported fascism. Fascist forces were seen as a tool to combat the rise of workers' struggles. This support had numerous examples. For instance, in March 1939, the 15th to this day, when Nazi troops occupied the remainder of Czechoslovakia, the Bank of England surrendered to Hitler the gold reserves of the Czech National Bank that was placed under British protection. Churchill's admiration and glowing statements for Mussolini, Franco and Hitler are well documented. The policy of collaborationism reinforced the Nazi monster and made war inevitable. By encouraging German expansionism, the ruling classes of other imperialist powers had condemned their peoples and themselves to be victims of Nazi militarism. The ruling classes in France led this blindness to the ultimate consequences. Faced with Nazi aggression, in June 1940, they capitulated in a few weeks, and much of its ruling class stayed within the puppet collaborationist Vichy regime. The Nazi-fascist monster, at least in Europe and Asia, engulfed the world in the Second World War, causing tens of millions of victims with unthinkable horror. Resisting and fighting the Nazi-fascist aggression were, from the first moment, the Democrats, the Patriots, the Communists, organizing the resistance and unity of all anti-fascist forces in the hardest of conditions. The defeat of Nazi-fascism took place mainly through the Red Army and the Soviet Union, who faced and defeated the bulk of Nazi military might. When in 1941 German troops arrived at the gates of Moscow, almost all of Europe was in the grip of fascism and its allies. The decisive battles of World War II, which changed the course of First World, Notice, Leningrad, Kursk, was made at the cost and sacrifice of terrible human and material losses. The Soviet people gave their huge and the most important contribution to defeat the German war machine. After 75 years, the danger of fascism resurfaces. We have seen these examples in several statements before what I'm saying. With acting forces of Nazi ideology, again with the support of the ruling classes of the great powers like the United States, in the European Union and their other allies. Ukraine is presently the most blatant example, but with expressions in several other European countries, as we just heard before, and like in Baltic republics, in which veterans of the SS are being publicly acclaimed as heroes, which is a very worrying and very dangerous sign. As we said before, Nazi symbols and SS officers are being again brought into light and defended publicly, which is a very dangerous sign. We also see these signs in the destabilization of Venezuela that is promoted by the most far-wing sectors. Many of the conditions that led the ruling classes in the past opting for fascism are again present. A deep crisis of capitalism with no end in sight. A growing popular discontent with the policies of austerity that destroy their living conditions and attack their labor rights, while a growing disappointment with economic and political capitalist system that is eroded by fraud and corruption. The risk that these classes will resort to fascism again increases in an attempt to maintain their dominance. Alongside the rise of the right-wing forces, we also witness the growing militarization and aggression in international relations by these great powers, again the US and their allies, with a major role for NATO, that we see as a major threat for peace worldwide. this happens also because the powers like US see their relative power declining, faced with emerging countries and also with changes in progressive changes in governments in countries that had previous subservient governments to them. This is the case that is happening in Latin America, and this is why also Venezuela is at the aim. The change of subservient governments now by progressive governments in several countries. We also see a very clear attempt, and again Ukraine is a sign of this, of the encirclement of Russia, and then again with the displacement of 60% of the United States military powers to the Pacific, the encirclement of China, trying to not allow these countries to become world powers as they are doing, because they're not aligned with the United States interests. But in the view of the serious threats to world peace and the growing imperialist interference, aggression, peoples resist, and this resistance is rising, creating also vast opportunities to expand and strengthen the resistance to this, generating the forces that can and must build a better future. The World Peace Council is an integral part of this wide front of wills and combative action, and has to be much more, and will be much more, the more daring, diverse, strong and determined its intervention. We believe it is necessary to reaffirm with renewed commitment our pledge to strengthen the actions promoting the principles of general and controlled disarmament, peaceful coexistence between states of balanced development, with a view of the welfare of all mankind, the respect for human rights, for fundamental freedoms, the elimination of all forms of discrimination, the elimination of fascism. It is necessary to reaffirm the defense of the right of peoples to their sovereignty and independence, and to promote international cooperation. We believe it is necessary to strengthen the fight against war and imperialism, against political military blocs as NATO, against the militarization of the European Union, against foreign military bases, against the arms race, for a world free of weapons of mass destruction. We deem it is essential to strengthen the solidarity and cooperation with all the peoples of the world, but in particular with those that are victims of imperialist wars and aggressions. We must continue to staple our action by denouncing and combating the growing and intolerable injustice, all forms of oppression, exclusion and discrimination generated by this system. The struggle for peace is an integral and necessary part of the struggle for justice and progress. The struggle for peace is decisive and unavoidable contribution to overcoming the economic crisis, to build a world of justice and social progress, based on the democratization of economic relations and the development of a sustainable relationship between human communities and nature, respecting the rights and yearnings of all peoples of the world. The desire and the right of peoples to peace, embodied in the achievement realization of rights to welfare, food, water, health, housing, education, work, culture, leisure, recreation, healthy environment, are all connected also with the struggle for peace. The global movement of peace embodied in the World Peace Council had its origins 65 years ago, between the 20th and the 26th of April 1949, both in Paris and here in Prague. Well, because the first World Congress of Partisans of Peace was held in these two cities, so again we are in a very important symbolic city for this. This brought together thousands of delegates from dozens of countries. At the end of the following year, the World Peace Council was formed in Warsaw, with 221 members and chaired by the prestigious French physicist Frédéric Joliot-Curie. At the origin of this global movement, and this also addresses what we think we need to do, we need to remember what originated the World Peace Council, how from the horror of the Second World War, the need to build this collective struggle for peace originated. At the origin of this global movement and organizations were anti-fascist resistance movements from various countries that had just gave their huge contribution to defeating of Nazi fascism. And prominent figures of science, art, literature, worker rights activists, the most varied political and religious confession and convictions. Throughout these 65 years, the World Peace Council and its member organizations have been at the forefront of the struggle waged on a global scale in the defense of peace. To defend and strengthen the worldwide movement embodied by the World Peace Council, with its anti-imperialist, democratic, unitary and mass characteristics, is a decisive contribution to promote the values of peace, cooperation and solidarity, to build a world of progress, sovereignty and peace. So once again we want to underline the very big importance of us being all here together, to coordinate, to exchange experiences and to strengthen our common struggle for peace. Thank you.